Today we're coloring Barn Quilts in this new coloring book by Marian Parsons, aka Miss Mustard Seed, my favorite blogger. Plus we're giving away copies to 3 lucky winners, so stick around. Hello there, colorists. Welcome to PencilStash, a weekly show all about coloring. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing to get all of the new content, and be sure to hit that like button if you're enjoying my videos. Today I'm super excited to share a new coloring book with you guys. Well, it's new to me anyway. It's called Barn Quilts by Marian Parsons, who is Miss Mustard Seed, one of my favorite bloggers. And I'll be putting a link to her blog in the description below. Now, I've been following her for a few years now. She does everything from farmhouse decorating to the exclusive Miss Mustard Seed milk paint line to watercolor painting. And I just love her style. Well, excitingly, she now has a coloring book out, and I reached out to her to see if she'd be willing to send me a copy, and she not only sent me a copy, but sent me 3 additional copies to give away to you guys, my viewers. So stay tuned and keep watching the video to find out how you can enter for your chance to win. So real quick, I'll just kind of show you guys what's in this. This coloring book is full of pages of farm scenes, complete with barns adorned with quilt blocks, as well as pages of quilt blocks and quilt patterns by themselves. The paper quality is really very, very nice, and I can't wait to dig into this book. So let's get started. This is the page that I've chosen to share with you guys, your classic barn with a horse here in the foreground. And right off the bat, I feel like adding a weather vane to this cupola. So we'll just quickly sketch that in right here. And I'm going super classic Americana with my barn, so she'll be red, but with lots and lots of other colors to weather it and make it look as though it's been sitting in the harsh summer sunshine for a long, long time. So starting with yellow ochre, we'll just use some horizontal strokes across these barn boards to lay down the yellow in places that would get the most sun damage or the most kind of wear and tear. And what we're doing is we're just going to keep adding colors and building up our layers until we get the look that we like. We'll do the same thing with Goldenrod now, which has more of a golden orange tone to it than the previous yellow that we used. We'll build around our yellow ochre with this and put it in a few new spots as well. And just a quick note, I'm keeping my yellows away from under the eaves and away from the windows, etc., as I'll be making those areas dark, and I'll explain why later when I get to them. And don't be afraid to overuse your yellows here at this stage, as if you feel it's a little bit too much later on, you can always layer on top of them to kind of backtrack a little bit. But it's really kind of impossible to add them later once you put down the darker colors. Now we'll get into our oranges, starting with pale vermilion, and we'll do exactly the same thing, feathering this against and on top of the layers already down. And use light pressure here too to ensure that we can continue layering later on with more colors. Little carmine red. And now we're getting a bit more into those red colors that I ultimately want to end up with, and will ultimately end up dominating our barn here. Also, this video is not sponsored by Marian Parsons or Miss Mustard Seed. I just love the idea of supporting my favorite blogger and maybe sending a little love her way. So check out her website, missmustardseed.com, if you get a chance to. I also just want to give her a big, big thanks for sending me 3 additional books to give away to you guys. Put in a little henna. Red crimson now, and with this one, we'll start to cover all the areas that may still be white at this point. And this will complete what I call the foundational layer, that after this, we'll start to now build layers on top of this layer. Also, stay with me as we're at that stage that I like to call bad camo, as in bad camouflage, as it looks terrible before it starts to look good. So this layer is kind of splotchy, kind of patchy, so don't be fooled and give up halfway through. We are just kind of at that foundational layer, and this is just a necessary stage before it begins to come together. Make sure you go along all your edges with crimson red too. The outer edges, edges against the window and the quilt block here, the eaves, etc. And as you pull the color away from those edges, make sure you're staggering where they end up to not get that harsh kind of unnatural line. Same thing with Crimson Lake, which is a skosh darker than Crimson Red. And we'll follow the same areas we just covered with that crimson red, but we're not going to pull the color as far from the edges as we did before. So, maybe if you pulled like an inch with your crimson red, now you'll pull maybe 3/4 of an inch with your crimson lake. Now, the other thing we'll do with this color is to create the shadow that gets created by that overlapping siding. Now, barn board doesn't usually overlap like this, but one does seem like it's doing here. So we're going to go with it. So that means that we'll put a real thin line directly below each line that Marian has drawn for us, creating that shadow. All right, I feel like the barn is in a pretty good place. So we'll use our blender to bring these colors together. Use horizontal strokes across the length of each board to keep the colors in roughly the same place that you applied them. If you were going like vertically with your blender, you would start to pull colors kind of in the wrong direction, and you would start to get some really weird shapes and colors pulled into areas that you didn't really intend to. So, kind of the same way that you sand wood, you're going to want to kind of go with the grain on this. And here's a pro tip. Sometimes I use my finger as a stop to push against with the pencil if I want to make sure that I don't accidentally get any color into an adjacent area. So, maybe keep a ruler by you, use your finger, whatever you have handy, just to keep your pencil from getting away from you. Now I want to add some espresso brown to dirty up our barn just a little bit. And I'm going to start by putting a thin line under the eaves on top of that crimson lake that we used. And we're just going to create an additional super thin line just under the line that Marian gave us where our boards overlap. We'll move on to the doors of the barn now, and I'll do them in brown just to differentiate them from the red. Putting down a loose layer of bronze. No need to be perfect with this, and in fact, I'm purposely trying not to fill in everything, and I'll kind of show you why in a second. Using espresso again, we'll fill in those areas that happen to be left white as our starting point. The areas are quite small here on kind of the roof line, so I'm not going to be putting in any wood grain, but the color variation that we're putting in here will achieve a similar look. And I'm going to use my blender again. And if you look, this is a pretty awesome looking before blender and after blender comparison on the left side of the barn door versus the right. So it really kind of shows you what it does in terms of the vibrancy and the pulling together of all of those colors, which is why the blender is one of my favorite coloring tools. Now we'll do the back wall of the interior look-through of our barn here. And I'll do it nice and dark, as I think that that's the way that it would appear in real life. And we're just going to do the edge of the wall in dark brown. And we'll fill in the rest with black. And now I'm actually going to cover both of those colors in espresso. And what that is going to do is actually going to act as my blender and just add a little bit more color here and just give us that depth that we're looking for. Moving on to the non-barn areas, let's do our apple tree with red apples. In our greenery will be lots of layers of green that we'll build upon with both color and maybe even a little bit of texture. And right now I'm just coloring some random spots on the grass here. Most of this will be covered up, but it's nice to give a little bit of variation at this stage, as there will be some of those layers that will show through a bit once we add that texture. The tops of our bushes, where they would be getting hit with this great sunlight, I'm going to color in the same color, but I'm going to stop kind of where I think that sunlight would be most prominent. And on the tree, I'm coloring all the clearly defined leaves with this color too. All right, switching it up to sap green light, which is just a bit darker. We're going to use this to create a gradient of greens. First, using it on our bushes just below that area where the sunlight is hitting. Then we'll use it to build our color variation in the rest of our greenery. With marine green, we're going to add that texture that I mentioned earlier. We're going to add short, sharp, vertical lines to simulate the texture of grass. And when I say vertical, it doesn't have to be perfectly up and down, but, kind of that, off skew, but generally up and down texture. And this part is a little tiring, and your technique might get a little sloppy as you go, but try and stick with it, and you'll see why in a moment. Add some marine green on the foliage as well. And we'll fill in the rest of the white space in our tree. All right, we've got some time here, and this seems like a good time to tell you guys about the coloring book giveaway. As I said, Miss Mustard Seed was good enough to send 3 additional copies of her coloring book, Barn Quilts, to give away to 3 lucky PencilStash viewers. So to enter to win, follow the link in the description, and it'll just ask for your name and your email address. It is that simple. And don't worry, you won't receive any unwanted emails from me. I won't be using these for anything other than the giveaway. I don't even think I get the list or anything at the end of this. It's just a way to enter. And like I said, I've got 3 books to give away, so that means that 3 people will win. Just a few quick disclaimers though. Because international shipping rates are crazy expensive, unfortunately you do have to have a United States address for me to send your book to. So please don't enter if you do not. Number two, the contest will be open until the end of November. So your entry must be received by midnight on November 30th, 2017. I want to give folks till the end of the month to watch the video and to enter and not miss out. And on December 1st, 2017, the very next day, I will go into the system and randomly pick 3 winners. And then I'll reach out to you via the email that you provided me in order to get your mailing address. And if I don't hear back from you, unfortunately, by like December 7th, 2017, I will have to pick another winner just so that we make sure that everybody has a chance. And again, if you're not able to provide me with a U.S. address, I'll have to pick another winner too. So when you're done watching this video, follow the link in the description, and good luck to everyone. For some variation and some shadow, I'm also going to add some areas of espresso. Now we'll fill in the little blades of grass Marian has given us with Prussian green. All right, our tree's looking a little flat, and I want to add a lot more depth. So we're going to fill in some of those areas with another layer using very light pressure of espresso. And I'm actually going to be using circular or kind of oval orbital strokes here just to keep me very, very light-handed, because I want a very nice, soft transition between all of our colors. Same thing with a little warm gray, 90%. Okay, on to our pony. Now we've already got a lot of brown going on with the barn doors and some of the foliage. So to mix it up, let's do the sky in a fun speckled gray. Onto the main subject of our page, the quilt block. And I think it'll be fun to make this some really kind of interesting random colors. So I've pulled a few to start with, and we'll add on to this as we go. And while I'm normally a very, very big fan of symmetry, I think it might be interesting to kind of mix it up. So I'm actually going to put these colors in randomly. I'm thinking we need a neutral in here with our crazy random colors. So I'm just going to pull out my cream color and just kind of have this as kind of a good foundation for our crazy colors to play against. And I'm going to be a little bit more consistent with my placement of this cream. Okay, we are in the home stretch now, so let's do the sky. And I'd really love to use some soft pastels here. And I'll show you how to use those in a bit. But to prep, the first thing I'm going to actually do is pull out my Faber-Castell oil pencils, specifically the white Faber-Castell pencil. And I'm going to be putting this in a few key areas that will actually keep the soft pastels from sticking to the surface of the page wherever I put this. So we're going to use it on our birds here, which we want to remain white. And kind of the analogy that I use for this is, do you remember like coloring on Easter eggs with that white oil pencil that they would give you, or the white wax pencil? It basically doesn't stick to it, right? You could write your name, you could draw little things on it. It's very much the same here. So if you put down the Faber-Castell pencils, any soft pastels you put on top of it, pretty much won't stick. All right, good stuff. Now we can use our soft pastels. And I'm going to be picking out a few colors that I may want to use on the sky. And just a few other supplies that you may need: some Q-tips, some cotton makeup pads, and a utility knife. We'll start by scraping some powder off with our utility knife. Try to be gentle to control where this powder falls, since the rest of our page was done with Prismacolors, which will pick up the color of the soft pastels. So just want to be a little bit careful. Then we'll take our cotton pad, wrap it around our finger, and blot and swish this powder into our paper. Okay, this is coming out very, very light, so I think I want to try a little bit more of a direct approach. So we're going to use this like chalk and just kind of apply it directly to the page. Then we'll blot it out with our cotton pad. There we go. This is showing up much, much better. I don't know if it's just this paper that it's on, but for some reason the soft pastels just weren't really sticking with the powder approach. All right, now that we know that that works, let's apply some more and see where it takes us. Don't forget the space here on the other side of the barn. And just a tip to get right up against the edges, if you aren't comfortable using that cotton pad, or if you have, super tight areas to get into, you can use a Q-tip to rub into those areas that require a bit more precision. So you can either, apply it directly to the paper and then swish it around with your Q-tip, or you can actually use your Q-tip right on the soft pastel, just kind of rub it and then put it on the paper that way. Just a bit of cleanup now. I forgot to color this horse's tail. And I'll use my Prismacolor white pencil to blend the colors on my quilt block. Add some detail to our window. And we're done! I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. It helps new folks find my channel. And if you want to subscribe, hit that circle in the center of your screen with my face on it. And if you want to watch more of my coloring tutorials, you can either follow that video link on your screen or visit my channel to pick one of your own. That is it for me today. Don't forget to enter the giveaway via the link in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.